Hello, I'm Lucy and welcome to Beautifully Unfinished. It's the podcast for navigating midlife disruptions, where space is held for both the wobbly bits and the magnificent parts of life. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for joining me. Today I want to talk about something many of us know far too well. It's the detours of life. Those unexpected twists that take us away from the path that we thought we'd be on. Maybe it's a career change that you never planned for, or relationship ending when you thought it would last forever, or perhaps a health challenge, an empty nest, a dream that didn't unfold the way that you imagined. Most of us spend our lives making plans. We map things out. We imagine where we'll be in 5 years' time. We create timelines and expectations. We picture what our future will look like. And then life happens. And suddenly we're traveling on a road that we never thought that we'd ever take. The thing about detours is that they really feel beautiful when we're in them. They feel frustrating, disappointing, perhaps confusing, devastating sometimes. And often what we're grieving isn't just the loss itself. We're grieving the story that we've already written in our minds. We're grieving the future that we imagined. We're grieving the certainty that we thought we had. Sometimes we grieve not what happened, but what we expected to happen. And that's completely understandable. When life doesn't follow the blueprint that we've created, it can leave us feeling lost and questioning everything. But what if the detour isn't taking us away from our lives? What if it's actually becoming part of our lives? What if the road we didn't choose is teaching us something that the straight road never could? The funny thing about a road detour is that when you're driving on a detour, you don't usually assume that the road has disappeared forever. You're expecting to reconnect with the main route at some point, right? Yet when life throws us a detour, we panic. We assume that we've missed our chance. We think that we've fallen behind everyone else. But perhaps life's detours are more like road detours than we actually realize. They're not taking us away from where we're meant to be. They're simply taking us there by a different route. A straight road might get us to a destination more quickly. A detour often changes who we become along the way. And perhaps that is why detours matter. Because while the destination may change our circumstances, the detour changes our character. There's been one detour in my life that has shaped me more than any other. It was losing 2 children. First Mitchell through illness, and then a year later Morgan at birth. If I'm honest, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't wonder what life would have looked like had they grown up alongside their brothers and sister. That was never the story I imagined for our family. At the time, it didn't feel like a detour at all. It felt like the road had come to an end. There was no lesson I wanted to learn, no silver lining I was looking for. Just devastation and heartbreak. Over the years, I've come to realize that although those losses never become easier, they have shaped who I became. They taught me compassion in a way nothing else could. They softened my heart towards other people's pain. They reminded me never to assume I know what someone else is carrying. They taught me that every person we meet is fighting a battle we know nothing about. Perhaps they made me listen more carefully, love more deeply, and hold people a little more gently. Some detours don't end. We simply learn to carry them differently. Would I ever choose that detour? Never. Would I ever be grateful for the loss? No. But I'm grateful for the person those difficult roads have helped me become. That wasn't the only detour my life would take. A few years later, we lost our home, our livelihood, all during the Zimbabwe land invasions. Everything that we'd worked so hard to build was taken overnight. Then came the end of a marriage that I believed would last a lifetime. Another road I never imagined walking. At each of those crossroads, I remember thinking, surely this isn't how my story was supposed to go. And yet, looking back now, I can see that every detour added another layer to who I am. Taught me resilience when I didn't think I had any strength left. It taught me faith when I couldn't see what lay ahead. It taught me that beginning again is possible, even when you think that your best days are behind you. And perhaps the most beautiful surprise of all was discovering that life still had one more unexpected turn waiting for me. A second chance at love. A love that arrived later than I'd planned, but at exactly the right time. Because here's what I've learned. Detours don't always end in loss. Sometimes they lead us into blessings that we never imagined. The challenge, of course, is that we usually don't understand any of this while we're living through it. When we're in the middle of a difficult season, we want answers. We want explanations. We want reassurances that everything's going to make sense. We want someone to hand us a map. But life doesn't always work that way. Meaning arrives later. Perspective arrives later. Understanding arrives later. The dots usually connect backwards, not forwards. When we're living an unfinished chapter, we can't always see how it fits into the larger story. Maybe that's one of the hardest parts of being human. We want clarity before we move forward. But often clarity comes because we moved forward. So if you're listening today and you're currently in a detour, I want to gently remind you of something. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're not lost. You're simply living a chapter that hasn't revealed its purpose yet. And while I can't promise that every detour will make sense, I do believe that every experience has the potential to shape us in a meaningful way. Being beautifully unfinished means accepting that some of those chapters won't make sense while we're living them. It means trusting in ourselves, trusting in God, enough to keep going. Even when we can't see the whole picture, it means allowing life to surprise us. And sometimes it means discovering that the road we never would have chosen becomes the road that transforms us. Perhaps one day you'll look back at the season and the one that you wished you'd skipped, you suddenly realized it wasn't the chapter that was delaying your life. It was the chapter that was preparing you for everything that came next in your life. So this week, I want to leave you with one question. What detour are you resisting right now? And what might change if you stopped seeing it as an interruption and started seeing it as part of your journey? Maybe the most beautiful parts of your story won't come from the road that you planned. Maybe it'll come from the road that you never would have chosen. Because sometimes the detour isn't a mistake in the journey. Sometimes the detour is the journey. And sometimes, if we keep walking, it becomes the very road that leads us home. Thank you for spending the time with me today. If this episode resonated with you in any way, I'd love it if you would like, follow and subscribe so that you don't miss the next episode. And if you know someone who might need to hear this today, perhaps someone walking an unexpected road, I would be so grateful if you would share it with them. Until next time, you take care of yourself. God bless, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.